What if I told you that Myles Garrett just gave us the clearest sign yet about who should be leading this offense? And no, it wasn't in a press conference. It wasn't in a carefully worded team statement. It was in a moment of pure, unfiltered reaction that told you everything you need to know about where this franchise is headed. Look at his face. Seriously, pause and look at that expression. That's not the face of a guy watching another routine throw. That's shock. That's a defensive player who just witnessed something he hasn't seen from a Browns quarterback in years, maybe ever. And that moment right there is why this conversation about Shedeur Sanders isn't just speculation anymore. It's necessity. Let's be real about where Cleveland stands right now. You got an elite defense that's been carrying this team on its back, dragging them through games they had no business being competitive in. You've got Myles Garrett, a generational talent, watching his prime years tick away, while the offense goes 3 and out like it's getting paid to do it. And you've got a fan base that's been sold hope so many times they could open a hope dealership. But hope doesn't win football games. Execution does. Leadership does. And that's exactly what Garrett has been screaming for without saying it out loud. When Garrett talks about this past season, you hear something different in his voice. It's not defeat. It's not sugarcoating. It's raw honesty from someone who's tired of the same cycle. The defense does its job, sets the tone, gives the offense every opportunity to capitalize, and then watches drives stall, momentum evaporate, and games slip through their fingers. He's been diplomatic about it, professional even, but the subtext is loud and clear. This defense can only carry you so far before it needs help from the other side of the ball. And that help hasn't arrived. Here's what makes this Shedeur Sanders situation so compelling. It's not about draft position. It's not about who's making $46 million to hold a clipboard. It's about who steps into that huddle and makes grown men believe the next drive is going to be different. Garrett has said it himself. This team doesn't need a quarterback who's perfect. They need one who's resilient, who responds after a sack, after a turnover, after a brutal half, and comes back like none of it rattled him. And from everything we're seeing, Shedeur isn't just talking that talk. He's walking it. You want to know what separates quarterbacks in this league? It's not arm strength. It's not 40 times. It's presence. It's walking into a room full of veterans who've seen every flavor of hype and earning their respect through preparation, not promises. Garrett has pointed out that Shedeur hasn't come in trying to be the loudest voice or force authority he hasn't earned. Instead, he's let his work ethic do the talking. He's taken criticism head-on, absorbed coaching without defensiveness, and treated every single rep like it's an audition, not an entitlement. That mindset alone has turned heads. But here's the really expensive part, the part that should have the Browns accountants sweating. Sanders isn't just building his value as a player. He's building his value as a franchise cornerstone. Think about Cleveland's quarterback history. It's a graveyard of failed experiments, broken promises, and desperate moves. They haven't had a Pro Bowl quarterback since 2007. Almost 2 decades of instability at the most important position in sports. Sanders represents something they desperately need, a young, marketable quarterback who can be the face of their franchise for the next 10 to 15 years. The jersey sales prove there's massive demand for Sanders as a brand. The Pro Bowl selection, even as a replacement, gives him legitimate NFL credentials. When you combine those factors with his age, his potential, and the fact that he's got one of the most famous athletes on the planet as his father and biggest advocate, you're looking at a player who's going to command serious, franchise-altering money in his next contract. Industry insiders are already starting to whisper about what Sanders' second deal might look like. And we're not talking about the $35 to $40 million per year that established veterans command. We're talking about potentially setting a new market for young quarterbacks based on a hybrid valuation model. Performance plus marketability. Production plus revenue generation. It's a completely different calculation than what we've seen before. The Browns are in this fascinating, almost impossible position. They got Sanders for practically nothing in the draft. A 5th-round steal. But they're also the team that's going to have to pay him when that rookie deal expires. And that prime equity arrangement? It shows they understand his marketing value. But it also sets expectations. It establishes a baseline for how that value should be compensated in future negotiations. Sanders and his team are going to point to that $14 million and say, we generated this kind of revenue on a rookie contract. Imagine what we can do when you actually invest in building around us. There's also the coaching change factor that nobody's really talking about yet. Cleveland just hired Todd Monken as their new head coach. How Sanders develops in Monken's system could dramatically impact his value. If Sanders takes a significant leap forward next season, if he combines improved on-field performance with his existing marketing power, we could be looking at a quarterback who commands top 5 money at the position. Not top 5 for young quarterbacks. Top 5, period. Among everyone. The timing of this Pro Bowl selection is absolutely crucial. It comes right as Sanders is establishing himself as a legitimate NFL starter, right as his marketing value is peaking, and right before a coaching change that could accelerate his development. It's the perfect storm for a massive payday. The kind that makes general managers lose sleep and salary cap specialists start running worst-case scenarios. Sanders represents something genuinely new in the NFL. A player whose off-field value might actually exceed their on-field production. That $14 million from jersey sales isn't a fluke or a one-time thing. It's a preview of what's possible when you combine the right personality, the right story, the right name, and the right marketing approach in a league that's increasingly driven by content and attention. This Pro Bowl selection validates Sanders as more than just a project or a backup plan or a feel-good story. It positions him as a legitimate NFL quarterback worthy of recognition. And in a league where perception often becomes reality faster than actual performance can catch up, that recognition translates directly to leverage in contract negotiations. It's ammunition. It's proof of concept. It's a stamp of approval from the league itself. Here's something wild to consider. When Deion Sanders entered the NFL as a top 5 pick, he received a 5-year, $5.25 million contract. Adjusting for inflation and the exponential growth of the salary cap over the decades, Shedeur's current situation might actually be more financially advantageous than his father's was at the same stage. The revenue-sharing model through prime equity could become the template for how future high-profile rookies structure their deals. Instead of just focusing on guaranteed money and signing bonuses, players might start demanding pieces of merchandise revenue, marketing deals, and brand partnerships. Sanders has proven that model works. He's the case study, the proof of concept, and the Browns are benefiting from it right now, in the short term. His popularity is driving merchandise sales, increasing fan engagement, generating media attention for a franchise that desperately needs positive narratives. But all of that value creation is going to come back around when contract negotiations begin. Every jersey sold, every headline written, every social media post that goes viral, it all adds up to a number. And that number is going to be astronomical. Looking ahead, this Pro Bowl selection might be remembered as the inflection point. The moment Sanders transitioned from rookie quarterback to franchise player. Not because of his statistics, not because of his win-loss record, but because of the combination of recognition, marketability, and potential that it represents. It's the moment the narrative shifted from can he play to how much will he cost. The real question isn't whether Sanders deserved this Pro Bowl selection based on his numbers through 7 starts. The real question is whether Cleveland is prepared for how expensive he's about to become. Everything that's happened this season has set him up for a payday that could reshape the quarterback market. The jersey sales, the media attention, the Pro Bowl recognition, the coaching change, the family legacy. It's all converging at exactly the right time for Sanders and exactly the wrong time for Cleveland's salary cap flexibility. And honestly, the Browns might not have a choice but to pay whatever number gets put on the table. Sanders has proven he can generate revenue. He can attract attention. He can provide the stability at quarterback they've been desperately searching for since the franchise came back in 1999. In a league where marketing value increasingly matters as much as on-field production, where content is king and attention is currency, Sanders might just end up being the most expensive 5th-round pick in NFL history. This Pro Bowl selection didn't just recognize what Sanders has accomplished in his rookie season. It previewed just how much his future is going to cost the Cleveland Browns. And if you want to stay ahead of every development in this story, every contract negotiation leak, every statistical breakdown that matters, make sure you're subscribed to Browns Breakout. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your prediction for Sanders' next contract, and let's keep this conversation going. Because trust me, this story is just getting started. The financial avalanche has been triggered. Now we just have to wait and see how big the impact is when it finally hits.